don't just take things at face value. What probably actually went on here, that's the predictor of future success rather than just a narrative of what might have happened.
I sent 2 units. They're bringing her down now.
No, Lieutenant, your men are already dead.
The future is approaching faster than ever.
Technological change is speeding up, and your already maladapted evolutionary mismatches are multiplying.
In the future, the current version of you is already dead. The way around that is to keep learning, keep evolving, mentally, psychologically, physically, and financially.
Hi, and welcome to Future Skills, the program where we talk about how to prepare yourself for a future of accelerating change. I am Karl-Mikael Syding.
And I'm Ludvig Sunstrom.
Today we're going to talk about survivorship bias.
To begin with, survivorship bias is really running rampant in society today. And people don't see it, and partly because it's really difficult to see, but also because probably they don't know about it. So the big point is to make you think more about this and kind of reevaluate many of the things that you take for granted. Many of the things where, I mean, there's no really easy example, but in general, like when you're looking at things and then it kind of becomes part of your thinking, who you compare yourself with or who you're thinking about as like a good person or whatever, or a role model, and then consider the amount of luck and the sort of specific circumstances that they had and whether that's even useful for you or not, especially in this day and age, because the circumstances are different than when they succeeded. And I mean, I'm getting really complex now, but we'll get into this more later.
It's very easy to think that a certain singer or actor or investor or company manager is a genius or has a lot of talent or was destined for success. But that's not at all true at many times. It's simply a question of survivorship bias. They happen to float to the top. The ones you see succeed, they may have succeeded for a completely different reason than you think.
Yeah, and a lot of the times it's about being early. I mean, let's not disqualify skill, because we're both big believers in that. And we both believe that people make their own luck. But at the same time, there is luck also. And if you take, for example, bloggers or YouTubers or other people like that in that kind of, I don't know, if you want to put them in that sort of genre, and then a lot of the people who were really early to start putting up videos on YouTube, or maybe even like scientific papers in a research field, then they, just because they were early, even though it's nothing special, they have an automatic scale effect. It builds up over time and it just gets better, like a snowball effect for them.
Once you get citations from your scientific paper, then that paper gets marked as important. And then people want to cite that paper. So It just keeps snowballing.
Yeah, and in music, there's a really famous study, and you've probably heard about this somewhere. It's called the superstar effect, where it's a like a sophisticated form of social proof, where it's like, okay, this has much more views than the other videos. I'm just going to look at this, and then it snowballs. So the video with a lot of views gets even more views, even though it's probably not a good song or a good video.
Yeah, sure. I read Harry Potter and the Da Vinci Code just because they were popular.
What did you think?
Well, they are pretty good. I mean, I thought the Da Vinci Code was really good, but on the other hand, I wasn't used to reading fiction back then. So it was almost the first piece of fiction I read in 10 years. But I thought it was excellent. But Harry Potter, on the other hand, now that's a children's book.
Going back to survivorship bias, if you want to look at some of the early people on, for example, social media. Okay, take Justin Bieber and Kim Kardashian. Sure, they're probably talented at what they do, but they were really early to use social media and they had some sort of skill for that. And then it just snowballed out of control. And now, if you were, I don't know how to even classify this, but if you're like a young wannabe boy artist who wants to make music for girls, then you're gonna look at Justin Bieber. And then if you're like a young girl who wants to be pretty on social media and make television series and stuff like that, then you're gonna look at Kim Kardashian, because they're the survivors. Whereas it's such a competitive field that all of their competitors, they're just gone.
Trying to emulate Justin Bieber or Kim Kardashian is probably the least effective path, since the competition is already there. That one is already taken.
Let's say you want to pursue this and you're really passionate and serious about this, so you're going to do this. If you were to like study these people, what can you learn that transfers into what you're doing now?
If you try to analyze success only based on the survivors, you at least run a pretty large risk of coming to the wrong conclusions, because they may have survived for completely different reasons than you might think.
Just because it's popular doesn't mean it's useful or truthful. All right, so let's go into the practical implications of survivorship bias. So we have 6 of them. And to begin with, first, remind yourself that it exists, and keep in mind that survivorship bias is a really big part of your life, and especially of popular culture, and especially of like really elitist industries like finance, social media, online, and medical companies.
And remember not to fixate your worth or other people's worth on a certain kind of success.
How do you mean there?
Just because somebody happened to succeed doesn't mean they are worth more or more competent, or that there is a predictability on what they can accomplish going forward.
So moving on to our second thing here, it is that keep in mind that survivorship bias is only going to get worse over time. At least that's what I believe.
Yeah, I have a couple of ideas on how that might be true, but what do you actually mean?
Well, what I believe is that I think it's kind of a continuation of the sort of trend that we're seeing right now, which is that, first of all, because information, which is really often stupid and easy to understand, is being broadcast very fast and quickly, because of that, we're seeing a few people who, for example, in the media who get popular, and they're being broadcast more and more, kind of going back to the snowball effect that we're talking about. Doesn't mean that it's any more true or better, just means that they're more popular or currently trendy. That's one thing. So broadcasting ability to spread the news is faster. Then the second thing is network effects. And that means that if you have some, for example, company, or I mean Facebook or Instagram are the best examples. And if you take them, then I mean they're the only ones there because they were fast to get network effects, and then everyone else is gone.
As the population grows, no matter how many we become, there will always only be room for maybe 100 or 200 celebrities or successful people.
You're like talking about Dunbar's number.
Kind of a virtual Dunbar. They're not our friends, but I know who Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise are, but I don't know who the new celebrities are.
Right.
As I forget Tom Cruise, I can fit maybe one new celebrity in there. And if there only are a fixed number of celebrities, those celebrities will be more and more successful, since they kind of suck up a certain percent of the total value of the economy. The top 100 celebrities will be richer and more successful than they used to be. The survivors that we see, they will be even more over the top than they used to be.
It's about, in this case, the network effects. You're not gonna know who the celebrity was or what they did before they had those network effects.
We were talking about Jerry Seinfeld earlier.
Yeah.
And
before we started recording.
Yeah, and I know if I don't focus and really make an effort to think about what he probably did to become the Jerry Seinfeld we know, then I just think of him as, well, he probably had some comedic talent, and then he just got on stage, and that was it, more or less. But in reality, he's probably a very strategic and hardworking person who thought this through from 0 to 1, and who've done all the work and failed and done all the work again and again. And like every person you notice have succeeded, once you get into their actual history, they are pretty deliberate persons, almost all, not Justin Bieber.
Yeah, I'm inclined to believe that.
All right, moving on.
Okay, so point 3 here, dare to be more contrarian. And what I mean is, it's maybe contrarian isn't the right word, but look outside of popular culture and look at, for example, the things that aren't talked about in popular social media, or, I mean, in your filter bubble or the newspapers that are popular. And this is another one of those hen and egg kind of advices, I think, because I'm saying that you should do something that is difficult to do before you're doing it. My perspective or experience is that I've been doing this for many years, and I think it gives me a kind of a slightly weird viewpoint I experience a lot of the time, and I don't really try to do it. I've just gotten in the habit of learning what I think is interesting and going like from one clue to the next, like a big puzzle that's curious and interesting to follow, and I don't know where it will lead. It's like a big mystery. But I know it's leading me towards like puzzle pieces that are very different from what most people are looking at. And that makes me pick out like different information than other people. My pattern recognition is focused on stuff that most people don't even think about. I don't know where I'm going with this, but it's like they're stuck in this crazy bubble.
Where we're going with this, just be aware of the possibility of being contrarian, is that just as we talked about with the Kardashians and Justin Bieber, those paths are already taken. You have to do something different and just walk with your ikigai and become a master at something different. And then you will rise to the top within that segment or that path that you create yourself, rather than trying to copy somebody else.
Yeah, and I think that's a perfect example of what we were talking about before with, was a couple of episodes ago, maybe number 10 or something like that, about the four capitals. And we gave the example of Jimmy Iovine and how his success, and he became a billionaire and knows like all the big people in Hollywood in the music industry. I think it's very difficult to say that he's not an interesting and successful guy. And his success is, he was nobody until he was like 35. And that's because he built it up by becoming a little bit better in these different four fields over a long period of time. You couldn't have predicted that in a way it's not understandable. It's complex, and it's a combination of many things over a long period of time.
If you keep at it, then sooner or later you will be the last man standing, or maybe you'll be dead. Anyway, I remember when we talked about Jimmy Iovine that I said, what? So he was almost 40 before becoming a billionaire. Why are we talking about this guy?
Yeah.
But okay, he became a billionaire pretty early, I would say, even if you talk about it as if...
Yeah, but the point is he didn't have that much money. I mean, he made money quite fast, I think.
And the point is that he did this going his own way. He made this in a completely new fashion.
Yeah. And it was hard to predict.
But I also think that he would have been pretty happy even if he wouldn't have achieved any kind of monetary success. He did something he liked. And he probably did it for completely different reasons than many people who are just onlookers, who think that they want the parties and they want to hang out with celebrities and rap stars and they want to have the money and be able to buy just about anything. But that's probably not what's driving him. Being a billionaire, yeah, that's probably nice if you do it early enough and you know what to do with it. But if it takes you 100 years, then maybe it's not that fun. Not at least if you didn't have fun doing it. You have to have fun on the way there. Otherwise, you just wasted a perfectly good life becoming a billionaire centenarian. And I promise you, a billionaire centenarian would any day of the week rather be a poor 20-year-old.
Okay, so moving on to number 5 here, which is that survivorship bias is creating more unrealistic expectations that are kind of like we've been talking about in the last 2 episodes. They've been sinking into society, into our culture in a very devious way, where you can't really pinpoint how they came to be there. It's just there. And then you you have the wrong anchoring point. You compare the wrong things. And people believe things without like really questioning why they believe that and so forth. So a lot of young people have really unrealistic expectations of what they can achieve or should achieve, or what is prestigious.
I think that's the mindset of this entire talk about survivorship bias, is that don't just take things at face value. What probably actually went on here? And that's the predictor of future success rather than just a narrative of what might have happened.
Yeah, I mean, do you know what kind of the circumstances were for, like, what's his name? Evan Spiegel, the guy who created Snapchat?
Oh, yeah.
He's a billionaire and he has a really hot girlfriend with a model.
No, I have no idea how he did it or where he comes from. He's just one of the world's youngest self-made billionaires and with a supermodel girlfriend. And I guess that's what most people know about him. And he created a super cool social media app. I mean, I think a lot of young people, they would change places with him in a heartbeat.
Yeah, exactly.
But they have no idea what he actually did or who he actually is.
Yeah, and I mean, the real question for me is, first of all, do they understand how he did it? Do they understand the specific circumstances that were present to make this happen? I don't think so. And then even if, I mean, no, it's almost impossible to guess it. But I mean, it's really hard to get a really clear picture of what happened here. You're just jumping to conclusions and it's like, I want to be this guy. But you don't know what they went through or how much luck it was or like, but now he's here and I want to be him.
Yeah, so again, I think that's the mindset of this entire series of Survivorship Bias. All right, final point, number 6.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting thing because what I am seeing, at least, is that a lot of people are looking to people who are much, maybe older, more experienced than them, which of course is natural, but it's like, let's say you have an industry of people and then you want to have the industry expert who is the guy in this industry. And it's like, okay, you have a 70-year-old guy who has a big business running something in the industry. And you're like, okay, I'm going to learn this new thing. And then I'm going to learn from this old guy who has a big business and so forth. And that goes back to the psychology thing. It goes back to cognitive bias and things like that. That's the wrong way to think, but you're jumping to that conclusion because he's the only one who is there, who is the number one, because he lived through all that. But probably the better way to think is that I should look at someone who is maybe a few years, either not necessarily older than me, but maybe older than me, but at least has like a few years more experience at this thing than I do, because then that person is still experiencing the same sort of challenges that I have, or at least they're like visceral in their mind and they can relate to you, or they've gone through the challenges that you've done. Whereas if you look at the old guy, he's gone through those challenges for so many years ago, and most likely either he's not thinking about it or it doesn't even compute in his brain.
And maybe he suffers from survivorship bias as well. He creates a narrative of how and why he succeeded and what he has been doing to achieve what he has. So maybe he doesn't even know what it is he should teach. And you, on the other hand, you just assume that he knows what he's doing, and you take for granted that it wasn't luck, but only skill, since he is at the top. I think one pertinent example right now would be Elon Musk, who heads Tesla, the super cool electrical vehicle car company.
Yeah.
And right now, when we're recording this, it actually seems that his whole company and he himself are unraveling. He keeps tweeting these really weird, almost psychotic things, and he seems fit for the asylum, really. And the company in itself is just laden with debt and production issues and what have you. So on the one hand, you would say this is a genius who's created a lot of successful companies: SpaceX, Tesla, SolarCity, PayPal, etc., etc. But on the other hand, this is a guy who happened to succeed taking enormous risk and stretching his abilities over several industries and companies. And he succeeded just because we went through an unprecedented period of money printing and market bullishness and euphoria. In a year from now, he may be completely bankrupt, including his companies.
All right. Thanks for listening today, and see you later.
Yeah, and a big thanks to Alexander Martin, who is our sound guy.